For over 15 years, I've built my career in the tech industry. I've seen booms, I've seen busts, and like many of you, I've experienced the cold, impersonal reality of a corporate layoff. It's a feeling you never forget. The email, the meeting, the sudden realization that your contributions, your late nights, your identity have been reduced to a line item on a spreadsheet. Today, we're talking about a company that was once the undisputed king of tech, a name that was synonymous with innovation and power. A company that is now in the midst of a painful, self-inflicted collapse and has laid off over 23,000 people in the last 2 years. This is the story of Intel, the story of how a company that once defined the future ended up missing it entirely, how they lost the chip war, how they missed the AI revolution, and how their failure has cost over $150 billion in value and destroyed tens of thousands of livelihoods, including people I know and respect. This one is personal. For decades, to have Intel inside your computer was a mark of quality. They were more than a chip maker. They were the architects of the digital age. From the 1980s through the 2010s, Intel was a monopoly in everything but name. They had no rivals. Their factories were technological marvels, their engineers were the best in the world, and their profits were astronomical. They were so dominant, they became arrogant. They believed their own hype. They were the undisputed king, and they acted like it. But as the saying goes, pride comes before the fall. Today, Intel is a shadow of its former self. They are no longer the leader in chip manufacturing. That title belongs to a Taiwanese company called TSMC. They are no longer the most valuable chip company. That title belongs to NVIDIA, a company that saw the future Intel missed. And they are no longer a stable, secure place to build a career. They are a company in crisis, shedding 22% of its workforce just to stay afloat. How did this happen? How did the king of Silicon Valley become its cautionary tale? The answer is a story of two catastrophic, unforced errors. Intel's collapse wasn't caused by one single mistake, but by a disastrous failure on two separate fronts. First, they lost the manufacturing war. For years, Intel's greatest strength was its factories. They designed and built their own chips, a strategy called integrated device manufacturing. But in the 2010s, they hit a wall. They got stuck. Their transition from the 10-nanometer chip process to the 7-nanometer process was a disaster, plagued by years of delays and failures. A process that should have taken 2 years took them over 5. While Intel was struggling, their competitors like Apple and NVIDIA made a brilliant move. They outsourced their manufacturing to TSMC in Taiwan. TSMC focused on one thing and one thing only: building the most advanced chips in the world. They perfected their process, while Intel fell further and further behind. Intel's greatest strength had become its greatest weakness. Second, and more catastrophically, they missed the AI revolution. As Intel was fumbling with its factories, a new technological revolution was brewing: artificial intelligence. AI required a new kind of chip, a graphics processing unit, or GPU. And the king of GPUs was NVIDIA. Intel, with its focus still firmly on CPUs for PCs, completely dismissed the trend. They saw AI as a niche, a sideshow. They didn't invest. They didn't pivot. They watched from the sidelines as NVIDIA's revenue and stock price exploded, powered by the insatiable demand for AI chips from companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. Intel didn't just miss the boat on AI. They watched the boat sail by, convinced it was going to sink, only to realize it was a luxury yacht heading to a private island they weren't invited to. This is the part of the story that gets lost in the headlines and the stock charts: the human cost. 23,000 jobs. That's not just a number. That's 23,000 families whose lives have been turned upside down. 23,000 people who poured their talent and their time into a company only to be told they were no longer needed. I've been there. I've sat in that sterile conference room and listened to the HR script. I know that feeling of walking out of the office for the last time, carrying a box of your personal belongings, feeling a mix of anger, confusion, and fear. It's a corporate failure, but it feels like a personal one. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Could I have worked harder? But the truth is, when a company fails on this scale, it's not about the individual employees. It's about a failure of leadership. Pat Gelsinger was brought back to Intel as a hero, a true believer who was going to save the company. But his rescue strategy failed. He couldn't change the entrenched, arrogant culture. He couldn't fix the manufacturing delays. And he couldn't undo the years of strategic blunders. The result? $150 billion in shareholder value gone, and 23,000 careers derailed. This is what happens when a company becomes too big to fail and then fails anyway. The executives with golden parachutes walk away with millions. The employees, the people who actually built the products, are the ones who pay the price. choice. Intel's story is a brutal but valuable lesson for every company and every employee in the tech industry. 1. Success breeds complacency. Intel believed its own monopoly was permanent. They stopped innovating, they stopped taking risks, and they stopped listening to the market. They forgot that in tech, you are only as good as your next product. 2. Don't fight the future. Intel tried to protect its old business model, CPUs, instead of embracing the new one, AI. They saw the future coming and chose to ignore it. You cannot fight a technological revolution. You either adapt or you become a fossil. 3. Culture is everything. Intel's internal culture had become slow, bureaucratic, and resistant to change. Even with a new CEO and a new strategy, they couldn't fix the broken machine from the inside. A toxic culture will sabotage even the best laid plans. Intel isn't dead yet. They are fighting for survival, trying to claw their way back to relevance. But the king is gone, and the kingdom is in ruins. For the 23,000 people who lost their jobs, and for those of us who have been through similar experiences, this story is a stark reminder that in the world of business, there are no guarantees, and that the decisions made in a boardroom can have a profound, and often painful, impact on the lives of real people.